What's up guys, how you're doing? Welcome to another video, and today we're talking camera lenses. We're talking lenses for sports. Which one should you buy? Which should you buy first? What order should you buy them in? If your budget's tighter, which should you prioritize first? What order should you buy them in? Which options have you got for all different budgets? Which lens should you buy for the sport that you're going to shoot? I'm going to try to answer all of those questions, every single one. Well, at least the most general questions that I possibly can in this video today. Something which I get asked about loads. People who message me through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You guys who've done that, you'll know I try to answer everybody when I possibly can. But that's one of the most common questions I get asked. So I thought it would be useful for you guys to make a video about that today. Before we get into it, don't forget I've got a live Q&A coming up right here on the channel real soon. If you want to get involved in that, make sure you follow me over on my social media channels. Follow me on Twitter at Rob Sambles Photo, follow me on Instagram at Rob Sambles Sport, because that's where I'll announce them. I'll let you know when they're going to be. The live Q&A will be right here on YouTube, but follow those social media accounts because that's when I will announce when and where you need to be a part of it. Going to ask you to do the usual YouTube magic. Hit the like button for me. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Comment below. Comment whatever you like, to be honest, because the more comments we get, the more it helps to trick that sneaky YouTube algorithm. And that's what we're trying to do. Right, let's get into this video so we can give you guys some good advice about lenses. So first things first, if somebody wants to photograph sports, which lens would I recommend to them first? What is the first lens you should try to prioritize your budget for, try and get hold of first if you want to shoot sports? And every time I will always give the same answer, and that is to get hold of a 70 to 200mm lens. Ideally an f2.8 version, and we'll get onto that bit in a minute. But why 70 to 200? I say that because this is the most versatile lens that you will get for shooting any type of sports. I don't think I ever shoot a sports event without having this lens on one of my cameras. This is great for indoor sports like basketball, maybe volleyball, you guys who shoot that. Good for kind of closer range stuff out at 70mm. Good for further down the court for your indoor sports. For field sports, yes, ideally you might like something longer, a 300 or 400mm, but actually most of the action shots that you will get, like the things right in front of the goal or the celebrations running towards you, most of, I guess what you would call the moneymaker shots, 9 times out of 10, they're shot with this lens, the 70 to 200mm. Really good, versatile lens. If your budget's tighter, you could sit on the end line of a football match and comfortably shoot a whole game just using this lens. Will you be struggling for stuff down the other end of the field? Yeah, you will be. But where are the best shots going to come from? They're going to come from the end that's near you with the players running towards you, and you will capture that with this 70 to 200mm lens. This should always be the first choice and the lens to buy if you guys are looking to shoot sports. Now, in terms of which model, there are so many different models that you can buy of this lens. So many different options that you've got. Now, I said earlier that ideally you want to look at the f2.8 version. That is because that will all round give you better performance for the majority of sports you want to shoot. If you're shooting indoor sports, that f2.8 becomes invaluable in terms of low light. If you're shooting faster outdoor sports, maybe, yeah, the low light's less important, but that shallower depth of field will really help you get more professional looking images. And chances are, if you want to buy a lens like this, that's probably what you're trying to achieve. That f2.8 will just do you well. The f4 lenses are great, they do a good job, but actually, you know what, for the extra couple of hundred, few £100, if you're going to stretch to a lens like this, then get the 2.8 version. Now, obviously this is a Canon lens. Canon themselves do all different models. If you want to go for the top end f2.8 Mark III of the EF lens, it's going to cost you about £2,000. We'll start at the top end here with the options. That's actually not the top end. You guys who are shooting on your R5s, R6s, maybe the new upcoming R3, you might want to look at the RF version. That's going to cost more like £2,500. For around £2,000, you can get the newest model of this lens. You can then drop down from there. The model before that is the Mark II. You can get the IS Mark II. Right now, probably about £1,000, maybe a bit less depending on if you're buying used and how used it is. You can buy the Mark I. This is a Mark I. This is the ES Mark I. You could buy this right now for probably about £600. So suddenly, a decent performing lens becomes a little bit more affordable. You also don't have to go with Canon. Other third-party brands like Sigma do decent versions of this lens. You can buy a Sigma 70 to 200mm f2.8 for about £350. Not used one of those myself, but I hear that they do perform well. So if you're struggling on a budget, doesn't mean that you're pushed out of the market of getting yourself a 70 to 200 f2.8. The other good thing about a 70 to 200, if you are wanting to shoot field sports, is that they work really well paired with an extender. So you could get something like a Canon extender. This is the 2x extender for Canon, the teleconverter. Whack that on there and suddenly you got yourself the equivalent of a 400mm lens. And yes, it does push the f-stop higher. That actually will make this f2.8 lens f5.6 if you whack that on there, but it could work in good light outside if you're shooting some football. So that is why, all those reasons, that is why the 70 to 200 is the first lens I would always recommend. So moving on from there, if you've got that lens, you've saved up your pennies again and you're looking for your next lens, what would I suggest is the next lens that someone buys? Well, this actually might vary a little bit depending on the sport that you're going to be shooting. If you're shooting field sports, primarily football, soccer, stuff like that, yes, probably at this stage you'll be wanting to push to the 300 or 400mm lenses. And we're going to get onto those, don't worry. But before that, I want to talk about this. This is a 24 to 70. And in fact, if you were shooting basketball or indoor sports, this would be the next lens that I would recommend you buy. Specifically for basketball shooters, I would even say there's an argument that maybe the 24-70 should come before the 70 to 200. For me, the 70 to 200 just about gets the lead on that one. But you could definitely argue, especially if you want to shoot basketball on the baseline, that the 24-70 is the way to go first. Especially for you guys shooting crop sensors, 24-70 is a magical focal length when shooting basketball on a crop sensor. So don't overlook this one. So why do I like this? This gives you the real good versatility. Of course, 24-70 leads you nicely up to the 70 to 200. Those two together and you are covered all the way from 24mm up to 200mm. And actually, you could photograph 90% of pretty much anything with 24 to 200mm focal lengths. So what options have you got if you're looking at a 24 to 70mm lens? Well, this is actually one of the higher ends on this one. This is the Canon 24 to 70mm Mark II lens. Now this will set you back about £1,000, maybe a little bit less if you're buying used, maybe a bit more if you want to buy a brand new one, but this one will cost you about £1,000. Again, it's the f2.8 version for all the same reasons that I said about the f2.8 with the 70 to 200. Same reasons for this one, but there are cheaper models that you could look at. Canon themselves do a Mark I version of this lens, which you could pick up now used on eBay for about £450, so fairly affordable for a decent lens. You could also look at a third-party lens again. Sigma, again, do a decent version of this, a 24-70mm. I had a look on eBay. You can buy one of those used right now for about £350, £400, so decent price for a good performing lens. Again, full transparency, I've not used that Sigma version, but I do hear good things about it. And I think Tamron actually do a decent 24 to 70mm lens as well, which you can pick up for about 300. And again, I hear good things about that. Of course, when I say good things, if you were to stack that up directly against the Canon Mark II, will it be the same? Maybe that's a future video, but I don't know. You probably will get slightly better results with the Canon, but again, it's still a good lens. So right, let's move on from there and let's talk about the big lens, right? I said if you're shooting field sports, probably at this stage, you will want to be looking at a big, longer lens. So right here we have the Canon 400mm. This is the Canon 400 f2.8 IS Mark I lens. Now, if you guys tend to be making a habit out of shooting field sports, football, soccer, rugby, those kind of sports outdoors, when you need a longer range, you will be looking at a 300 to 400mm lens, most likely. Again, I've gone with the f2.8 for the same reason. Now, when I'm talking longer lens, I'm going to kind of group these together because you won't necessarily need a 400mm lens. You will definitely find in a lot of cases that 300mm is enough. I shot professional football, soccer with a 300mm lens for quite a while and it was definitely good. The 400mm has given me that extra bit of reach that I wanted, especially when I'm pairing this most of the time with a full frame camera. The 300mm on a crop sensor does give you that tight other little bit of versatility, but on full frame I do find that the 400mm works really well. Now, in terms of options and budgets, if you wanted to buy this lens right here, this will probably cost you about £3,000. That's going to be used because this is the older lens, so you're not going to be able to buy a new version of this one right now. That would be if someone does have an unused one of these ones around, I'd be surprised, but a used version will cost you somewhere probably around 2,700 up to about 3,000, depending on how good a condition it is in. Of course, you can buy the newer version of those lenses, but those really do jump up a lot in price. You are talking many thousands of pounds to buy the newest version of this lens. The 300mm are similar. I believe the newer 300mm cost you about £4,500 right now, dropping down to about 2,000 for one of the older versions. Of course, we're talking f2.8. You can buy an f4 version of the 400mm lens with Canon. I actually made a video and comparing it a little bit with the f2.8 version. I'll link that video right here if anyone wants to go check it out. But that one's a bit cheaper. You can pick up one of those for about £4,000, but still a lot of money. Again, you can also look at some of the other non-brand lenses. Personally, I used a Sigma 120 to 300mm f2.8. It was the OS Sport lens from Sigma. Really lovely lens, and I used that for quite a while. That I think you can buy for like £1,500, maybe £2,000 now. So much more affordable if you're struggling to look at like a 300 or 400mm prime lens. If you're not afraid to buy the older lenses, you can even look. Canon do an f5.6 400mm lens, which I think you can pick up used on eBay for something like £600 now, so that's a hell of a lot of lens for £600. The thing to be aware of with all of these older lenses, that where Canon don't manufacture them anymore, it means if something was to go wrong with your lens, you might be struggling to get parts for repair, and it means a lot of companies, including Canon, won't service those lenses anymore. So do be mindful of that. If you're going to buy older lenses, you want to make sure you got yourself some good insurance just in case to keep yourself covered. So that kind of takes us back to the start of what I was saying about what order should you buy these in. For me, I would always start off with the 70 to 200mm. From there, I normally would move to something wider, like the 24 to 70mm, or maybe if you're going to be shooting basketball, for example, primarily, you might want to switch those round and go 24-70 and then 70 to 200. Once you've got yourself your 70 to 200 and you're getting used to that, that's when you want to then look at the longer lenses, like the 300 or 400mm lenses. Now, the thing I did want to say though in this video is you don't necessarily need all of that gear, and in fact you don't necessarily need much of it at all. I think for me it really depends on what subject you're going to be shooting. I had an experience recently and I made a video about using the Canon 100 to 400mm lens, and in fact I'll link that video right here, because if you are going to be out there shooting your kids, for example, playing sports in the middle of the day in good light, you don't necessarily need to be investing thousands of pounds into your kit. You could get away with one decent camera, that lens. You can buy Canon's brand new 100-400 EF lens for something like £1,800, and that covers you for almost everything here, right? 100mm takes you nearly to the bottom of the 70 to 200 range, and it takes you all the way up to the 400mm lens. One lens on one camera, real versatility. I think if I just wanted to go and shoot some photos of my kid playing soccer in the park, I don't think I would be buying all this gear. That 100 to 400 would look really, really attractive to me, especially if I knew I was going to be shooting in good light in the middle of the day, like of course a lot of kids sports are. So I suppose what I'm trying to say there is get the best lens that your budget allows. You don't necessarily need the really expensive lens. Going back to shooting photos of your kids doing sports, maybe you're a basketball shooter, you want to go take some photos of your kid playing basketball. Something like the Canon Nifty 50 f1.8 could do you really well, especially if you're on a crop sensor. I used this Canon 50mm f1.8 on my 7D Mark II photographing basketball and got some lovely results. So you don't necessarily need to go with the top end gear to get yourself some good photos. Just get the best one that your budget allows. So look, I think that just about rounds us off. Tried to give you guys a bit of help. Which lens should you buy? What order should you buy them in? Which sports are you going to be shooting? Hopefully that helps to make that a little bit clearer for you guys. If you did enjoy this video, if you got any value from it, if you found it useful at all, going to ask you in return, hit that like button because it helps me out loads and loads on my channel. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Guys, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next video.